in the interest of time, let's have Bob Schiavone come up. He's a global marketing director with R&D Leverage. They're a mold maker, structural brand development focused, which happened under Bob's marketing direction. And I'll have him update you on Support Plastics USA, which gained a lot of momentum last year at the Executive Forum. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you very much, Ange. And thank you, Mike. That was a great plug, Mike. I appreciate that. We got a big title up here that we're going to put up on the screen, and I want everybody to know this isn't going to be just about this group, and we're going to look at 30 slides just about Support Plastics USA. But what I wanted to share with everybody is how this group was born. How did it come about? And we're going to go through some of that, but first let me just do a little plug about R&D Leverage. Again, my name is Bob Schiavone. I'm Global Marketing Director for R&D Leverage. R&D is a very forward-thinking company. Back in 1976, it was started by Ivan and Ardith Drynick, and they started out strictly as an IBM injection blow molds, injection stretch blow mold to the blow molding industry, then diverse further into injection molds, and then as of 10 years ago, started a research development firm. That's the front end piece, which we call Leverage, thus the name R&D Leverage. So we like to use this fancy phrase that we're at the confluence of consumer research-inspired design and world-class manufacturing. They're based out of Kansas City, Missouri, and we also have a facility in the UK. But enough about me and R&D. I want to start off with two real simple questions. For those in this room, how many are working for somebody or you yourself are currently hiring by raise of hands? Very good. Okay, good, good. And then, obviously, with everything we're talking about, how many in this room obviously think that Made in America as strong as ever that you've seen in your lifetime? But you see this resurgence. Do you feel it? Do you see that? Okay. All right, well, good. So good, right presentation for the right audience. I want to make sure of that. So let's talk about some of the facts we face. So according to a National Tooling and Machining Association survey, 91% of those surveyed are experiencing severe to moderate problems of finding qualified employees. 69% of them have job openings, 81% of them have 1 to 5 openings, 14% have 6 to 10, 5% with more than 11 openings. So with those facts that we face, we obviously know everything we've heard about and we've talked about today. Manufacturers are understanding they must train workers, but we're still having difficulty finding those workers. That's become more and more obvious, especially within today's presentations. And also there's a perception issue. Now, this is a real big one for me. There is a perception issue that manufacturing jobs are still viewed as low-paying, dirty jobs. And we need to market manufacturing to young workers and students because we know that the industry does offer good jobs in modern, clean facilities at good wages. So one of the things I wanted to just stop right here and say, so what is it that we do now? And kind of like Mike, I wanted to point out, I'm not going to give you an exact roadmap today of what we need to do next. I'm going to give you observations. I'm going to give you data about what we're doing to help address some of these issues, workforce development and pride in American manufacturing. Now, I want to start with a little bit of a reflection on two totally different extreme industries and something historical, if you will. How did we, with the question that I had in my mind, how did we get here? And I wanted to start off with the steel mills. I mentioned R&D Leverage is located in Kansas City, Missouri. But I myself live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, born and raised. So yes, I do bleed black and gold, and I am definitely a Steelers fan. But I grew up with nationality all around me that I grew up in that steel mill era. Everybody in my family participated in one way or another. My father himself, up until the day he had passed, was a welder. You know, and if you think about it, there was a day that U.S. Steel was known as King of the Hill. It was the first American corporation to break $1 billion sales year barrier. There was even a popular saying that was just real common, as strong as U.S. Steel. By the 80s, American steel companies were bad jokes, you know. And then both management and unions were constantly locked in battles, trying to outdo each other. And now many of those same corporations are either closed or sold piecemeal to other areas. And now these areas that are around me in Pittsburgh, Ohio, they've kind of all but disappeared. They used to be really busy communities. Let me just take then another example, something totally another industry. We all know the Hallmark, right? The company Hallmark. And I got hold of a 30-page memo that had gone out to every single employee at Hallmark. And this memo goes on in detail to tell the employees about this port in Hong Kong was in its work stoppage, and it had to do with a strike for pay demand. And it goes on to explain that the vessel operations were affected, and there could be a 2 to 4 day delay, and if it gets more serious, they got to look at other ports, like in Shenzhen or Vietnam. And this delay is gonna really take a big toll on the company in terms of what they had coming in from overseas. A pretty interesting, in-depth memo that had to go out to every single employee. So with that, just two real simple, common sense questions came to my mind. One is, can the manufacturing sector of plastics be the next steel industry? I had to ask that to myself because I seen what it could do. And it's funny, if you ask some people that question, they kind of shrugged it off and said, nah, never. It's not going to happen. That's scary. That's not the right attitude to have. And the other thing I looked at is, just for me personally, I can never understand how you build a corporation or a business with your strategic plans, your business model, and somewhere in there allow overseas logistics to control that model. I just didn't understand that. So those are just two things to ponder on historically. But with that, as we've seen today and the things we're talking about, are things turning around? And we are starting to see that. And I want to point out an article I seen in Time magazine, and this is now a year old. But with that cover, obviously, it caught my eye, and I grabbed that issue. And, of course, all being about made in the USA. And the subtext of that was manufacturing is back. But where are those jobs? And some of the positive things I wanted to point out is we heard about that there's over 500,000 jobs now that were created in the past 3 years. First time in a decade that the number of factory workers has gone up instead of down. In 1960, top wage was $2.57. Today, $24.11. China, in factories in 2000 were getting paid 50 cents an hour, and by next year it's projected to be $4.50 an hour. It does also point out that, yes, manufacturing is coming back, but it's evolved in a very different animal that most of us would recognize today. And of course it mentions fast turnaround, specific to China, that if Americans can turn things around fast and get it right the first time, that's one thing that China would never be able to compete with. And of course, being the Pittsburgher that I am, I was very proud to see that we were mentioned in there as well, as with our work with Carnegie Mellon and what we're doing with specialized metals and robotics and bioengineering. So there does seem to be an attitude and an adjustment in our current situation. Everything you read, Google, and look up on YouTube, there's an attitude. I think we can do it here and actually make more money. There was an interesting quote from Alcoa that stirred up some controversy when they were quoted in the Wall Street Journal. And they had made the statement that describing a focus on wages as a basis for choosing production location is really old school. Pretty impactful. We've heard about General Electric today and what they're doing. And then there's Walmart. They had announced that they were purchasing an additional $50 billion. Actually, that's increased even further. And by the time I could finish this presentation, there was even another story about a company called Kent Bicycles, where they've just committed over 500,000 bikes to be made here in the U.S. But I also wanted to point out, and I heard it mentioned earlier today, if you haven't seen the commercial that Walmart has put out, and it's pretty interesting. So it was brought up today. If you haven't seen it, the good news, I'm going to share that with you here real quick. Pretty impactful commercial, and being the marketing guy that I am, I absolutely loved it. Because to me, and we even heard a negative comment about it this morning, and Walmart's an easy target. They're large, and they've made a lot of mistakes. They've done more wrong than good maybe when it comes to the topic of American manufacturing. But I can tell you that they're trying to do the right thing. So I want to come back to that video here in a second, but keep that in mind. So obviously, with what we're talking about today, we have a workforce development issue. We need help. And that pride in American manufacturing. No doubt our younger generation, we need help there. So when I talk about manufacturing, I like to share these next two slides. My kids will say to me or their friends and say, Mr. Schiavone, why are you always talking about manufacturing? I mean, really, what's the big deal? That's a real question. All of us sit in this room, we understand it, what it means to the economy. I'm telling you, the younger generation really doesn't understand that. They really don't. So I like to use this just as one slide. This is another group called I Make America, and I point out these top 3 reasons. They get it. It's real simple and clear. And then they take it further, and they're like, well, you're always talking about plastics. What's the big deal about plastics? I bring up that marketing term again. This is what we miss. Because if you ask most laymen, the general public about plastics, the marketing that they see is bottles floating in the water. They think landfill. But yet plastics is so important to the economy, but we're not part of that mainstream discussion. So that marketing side of it that we're lacking is real important. So we got to communicate that. That's real important that we're always out there communicating that. So that's where I get to the theme is there is definitely a feeling now more than ever, and we heard it today, so more over and over and over, and it kind of resounds exactly to where this point is. The timing is right. It really is. There's these reasons here that we've heard about today about the increased costing of oil, bringing things back, the revolution in shale oil and gas, which could be great for Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania as a whole as well. And I love this last statement because it's so simple, but it really summarizes, I think, how we ended up here. Because businesses overlook the fact that if you get someone else to do the dirty manufacturing work, you slowly but surely lose the knowledge and skills that enable you to do the bits that you thought you would be able to keep. Pretty simple, but that's really pretty straightforward and factual. And the timing is right. There's a convergence now in creativity and technology. New technologies in the web and the internet, improving manufacturing, access to entrepreneurs, CNC laser cutters, water cutters, 3D printers, really for the cost of a gym membership. In government support, they've announced over $30 million that was going to be invested in advanced manufacturing. That can be a whole nother presentation, and so I'll behave myself and we'll stay out of government. But obviously, I do believe if you wanted to really spend time on any kind of discussions and spend your time, government sure can do a hell of a lot more than they're doing right now for manufacturing. So I'd like to see some more action there myself. So with all these things happening, R&D Leverage said, what can we do? The timing's right. What can we do to get and support this? What can we do to go out there and kind of be part of this? So we started looking up, and thousands and thousands of groups that are out there for American-made products and American support and all this good stuff that was out there. But as we started to look, we realized that there wasn't any real specific group for plastics around our issues and our needs. So that's when R&D Leverage had created Support Plastics USA. And real simple mission. We're here to dedicate the support and promotion of the plastic industry. It's about American pride. We're here for mold makers, processors, and designers. Again, we have about 60 participating members right now. And our goal is to build a coalition. It's real specific to our industry. It's about creating one voice for ourselves. And we're really looking to create more partnerships, just like Mike mentioned. In that tool-making world, some of us that might look at each other as competitors, that's not going to work. There's certain things that we have to work together and share our need to address some of these issues. We do it with a real simple 4-prong approach. We're going to build a database of companies. I might add, it's free. All we're asking is for you to participate and be part of the dialogue. Share success stories. This is a big one for us, and we need more help here. How many of you, I guarantee you, walk into Walmart or any store and you either share with your daughter or your son or your wife or your better half that you see a product and you're proud of it because you knew the resin company was involved or you were part of the engineering or you did something on the mold. You're proud of it. But yet, we don't do anything in this industry for ourselves to go out there and say, how many jobs did that create? That it was made in the USA. In your local community, how many jobs? I was talking to somebody the other day, and they started calculating that. And there's some interesting numbers if you want to sit down and look at your small facility or large facility. How many jobs do you actually create beyond just what's in your 4 walls? Think about it. But we don't promote that. But we got to be part of that mainstream discussion. So that's what number 3 is about, and that's what we want to do as well. So with that said, the biggest thing is about networking. We got to do more of that and start talking more. The website's pretty simple. A lot of the information you heard today is on the site. And again, these are just some of the member companies. And what I love about it is it's a cross-section of members. There's a cross-section of members from all aspects, from molders to mold builders, and we want to get more designers. Someone brought that up, and that's, I think it was GE. Very good point. We talk about American manufacturing, but you got to include the designers. And so that's something that we want to attract as well, because somewhere along the way, they affect all of our business flow as well. So what I point out to everybody in the group, this is not my group. This is not R&D Leverage's group. This is their group, and they drive that direction. And one of the things that we've all come together and agree on as a group and as their members, that we agree that high-caliber colleges for years have kind of done a tremendous amount of damage to manufacturing as it pertains to business management, because it's being dominated by financial strategic minds, and they put manufacturing in a box. It's about buying on and operating on cost alone, which leads to what is cheapest. Again, we talked about the image of manufacturing, the attitude and perception. We need that marketing push. And we're really big about bringing back vocational education, or I like that, professional education, as Mr. Moser pointed out. We kind of overemphasize 4-year college degrees. 72% of high school students go to a 4-year college and only half are graduating. And training. There's a couple companies here that are out there that are here for every plastics news forum, and they offer training, and ask them. They'll tell you, overseas training's booming. But yet we have a hard time in America to commit to just 1 day of training. It's expensive. I'm going to tell you, watch out, because it's happening. They're smart enough, and they know that that's an issue. We got to do more of that here as well. So I just want to share just a few of what our members are doing. And again, these are just a few highlights. BA Dye Mold. They're dedicated about spreading the word to the next generation of mold manufacturers. They've created a panel of experts to share their success stories. They started something called Mold Your Career, and they have a scholarship that they give away to their apprenticeship program. Another example, Progressive Components, who is here. They formed an education task force. They're really big about bringing our industry out of the shadows into a positive light in students' minds, and what's really important, to the parents' minds. They've reached out to local high schools, colleges throughout northern Illinois to participate in career fairs, job fairs, and offering plant tours. And I love this. They started something called moldyourcareer.org as well. George Fisher's Central Plastic. They started something called Engineer for a Day. It's sponsored by the Oklahoma Society of Professional Engineers. They're working again with local high schools and VOTEC colleges. They find all of this experience to be very positive. Century Dye, who's also here. They started something called a manufacturing bus tour. And they did something also with a soapbox derby. And the whole intention is to get young adults to introduce them to the skilled trade careers. And they're really big about promoting manufacturing and skilled careers at the local community college, as well as offering something that they call as a manufacturing showcase. They're really big about bringing awareness to the local community, especially our educational leaders. And then R&D Leverage. We sponsored a program for Pittsburgh State University. They have a project that they use to promote internally for plastics. It's called a Gorilla Bottle Project. And R&D Leverage did everything from the, helped them, everything from the consumer research, the front-end piece, the retail audits, as well as the unit tools, the production tools as well. And that was successful. And, as far as R&D Leverage, we're doing a lot of stuff that you see here. And we're not going to go through all this. There's one thing I do want to point out, though, is the internal 4-year certificate machinist apprenticeship program. It's been very successful. Our CEO is here with me this week, so if you want to know more about that, he can give you more information. But it's a very good program. So what is it that you can do? Instead of just watching me sit up here and talk, what can you do? Well, one thing that I'll point out again, we have to remove the walls of protection amongst each other. We have to find ways to work together to support our own industry, or if not, we have to wait and watch. Young adults, again, they're not familiar with our industry, so how can we get out there and reach out to our high schools? Young adults, they understand globalization in a different way, but we can't let pride in American manufacturing go. We need to fix that perception. Me personally, if I had millions of dollars, I would do that. I would create a marketing campaign to educate the young in the pride in American manufacturing and what those plants look like. That's where my passion lies. And education, we've talked about that. And I think Ivy League schools now that are involved in R&D and technology, they need to take manufacturing to the next step, very important. But there has to be a need again for that high school involvement. And another thing you could do, and I want to talk a little bit about this guy. If there's one website I want you to write down besides Support Plastics USA, is MikeRoweWorks.com. Now, you might remember Mike Rowe from the show Dirty Jobs. Well, R&D Leverage has worked with his producers and with Mike Rowe himself. We communicated a few times. He's very proud with what we're doing. He knew nothing about, again, our industry and the impact of the economy. But I can tell you, I have not met anybody, honestly, as passionate as this guy is about the trades in American manufacturing, genuinely. And he is doing some really good stuff. So I'm going to advise you to take a look at that. But if you don't mind, I'm going to read just a few things from him that I've find pretty impressive. One is his advice to young people just starting out in the workforce. Show up early, stay late, and volunteer for the hard stuff. And within a short time, you'll be running that organization. Mike, sounds like something that happened to you. Lawmakers, as he says to everybody, he suggests with $1 trillion in student loan debt, we're lending money we don't have to kids who will never be able to pay it back to educate them for jobs that no longer exist. And that's nuts. And he goes on to say that for more than a generation, we've encouraged our children to aspire to careers that would enable them to work with their minds and not their hands. So it should come to no surprise that we have an estimated 3 million job vacancies in the skilled labor force today that are going unfilled because a lot of people erroneously consider those positions to be beneath themselves or otherwise potentially just undesirable. So, as his last statement that I wanted to read, we're now dealing with a problem of our own making. In our attempt to prepare our children from the drudgery of physical labor, we've become a society that no longer respects or celebrates hard work. And probably the most impactful is we have become a nation of consumers rather than producers. Now, I mentioned that Walmart video, and I keep stressing my desire that we really need some front man for the plastics industry to get us in the mainstream media. And I thought, he would be the guy. And I haven't given up that. It may never happen, but I'm going to keep going after it. But I did want to point out, somebody else obviously seen that and had the idea. Walmart. So Walmart took that same commercial that they've been running, and they seen what he's doing, and they wanted to really prove to the people that know Mike Rowe and what he's doing, they wanted to prove that they were really serious. Let me just share that same commercial, if you will, with Mike Rowe's narration.
At one time, I made things, and I took pride in the things I made. And my belts whirred, and my engines cranked. I opened my doors to all, and together we filled pallets and trucks. I was mighty. And then one day, the gears stopped turning. But I am still here, and I believe I will rise again. And we will build things, and build families, and build dreams. It's time to get back to what America does best. Because work is a beautiful thing.
So again, I don't want anybody to think I'm up here just promoting just everything that Walmart's doing, but I can't help but see this is what we're missing. And if you notice, I got to tell you, do a search. Don't take my word for it. Just do a search for Mike Rowe Walmart commercial. And it is amazing the blogosphere blew up. And more negative than positive. But here's the whole thing. Mike's bringing light to the situation, and that's through that negativity, it's shining a light on something that's very important. So my point is marketing is a big part of that. So as I come to a close here, other things you can do, again, speak up, support our industry. Plastics is big. I want to hear it as part of the mainstream news. Don't separate also what we do as designers and molders and mold makers, and learn how to sell on value, not just price. And everybody in this room, if nothing else, as executives, if we show that we have pride in Made in America, trust me, it's amazing. You will excite your employees. We create buzz around the industry, and hopefully we're opening up more opportunities. We need to begin to show our own children and young adults that manufacturing is a great career. So yes, I have 3 kids, 1 daughter who's going to be a nurse. My 2 boys are going into the trades. So I want everybody to know that I'm that passionate and believe in it, because there's nothing wrong with working with your hands. And a lot of people kind of think I'm a little crazy for being that passionate about it, but in our own industry, if we don't wake up and realize that and educate our kids and get them to look at manufacturing, then we're just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. Reach out again to your local high schools. We talked about that. And again, start with emails, blogs, and of course, joining groups like ours. I really hope, if you don't want to go to the website and sign up, it takes literally 1 second, 3 forms to fill out. I would hope my phone starts buzzing like crazy. That means you're signing up. If not, hand me a business card. I'll sign up for you. We're looking for the next ideas. We're thinking about potential scholarships. And again, we need that marketing push. And I've already spoke to Harry Moser, and that's the next action item for us. We want to take products that were molded and had a mold manufactured in the U.S., that was molded in the U.S., and promote that through the mainstream media. So again, as I close, is manufacturing in the midst of a great change and evolution? I absolutely believe it. I think it is, and that's really why my passion's about getting it done. Or as they say in Missouri, let's get her done. So thank you very much. Just stay up here.